What is up, Packer fans? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at AndyHermanNFL. Hope your weekend is going great. We are about to get into Packers minicamp week, mandatory minicamp, which doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot when basically everyone's been showing up to all the practices anyway, but we do have mandatory minicamp coming up this week. 2 of those will be open to the media, Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're getting closer and closer to that. And then we get a little bit of that lull period. And then again, it's going to be training camp and there's going to be joint practices and family nights and preseason games. It's going to be epic. Can't freaking wait. Of course, we go 365 days a year here at the Pack-A-Day podcast. So if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to do so. Like, comment, give those 5-star reviews. And of course, check out those Pack-A-Day podcast YouTube memberships as well. Today is one of my absolute favorite episodes of the entire year. Today, we're going to go over some of the unique personnel packages and schemes and formations and everything that Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley and even one for Rich Bisaccia that these guys have at their disposal with this upcoming season. And why I like it so much is all through the offseason, we sort of go which Packers are going to be back, which Packers aren't going to be back. And then some players leave via free agency. Maybe you get some trades, you get some big free agent signings. Then, of course, you transition to the draft. And then maybe you pick up another free agent here or there, like Andre Dillard this year. You get some undrafted free agents. And then all of a sudden, you've got, of course, your 90-man roster. And we kind of have an idea for what this roster might look like in the 53. But we don't always, a lot of times, take the time to actually think of like, what is this going to look like in practice? And we go through what a potential starting lineup is going to look like. But of course, we all know that, yes, you have your starting lineup, but this is not a league where you just are like, yep, these are 11 starters and those are the 11 guys that are going to play down in and down out. You've got your quarterback, you've got your 5 offensive linemen, but everyone else is going to rotate a bunch at wide receiver, tight end, and running back, and they're going to use all different formations and sets. And on defense, same thing. There's going to be guys rotating up front. There's going to be different formations that they use. There's going to be some, maybe nickel, big nickel. There's a lot of different things that are going to go on with Jeff Hafley and Matt LaFleur to utilize all this talent that Brian Gutekunst has brought this team. So today, we're going to go through all of these. We're going to go through all the different formations and packages that they're going to have at their disposal. And let's look at what it actually looks like and why it could be beneficial to use some of these. So let's start on offense. I'm going to go with a lesser used formation as of late. It's been figured out a little bit at the NFL level, but that's the 5 wide receiver set. Now, back in the day, back kind of in that Giants, when the Packers lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game, the Corey Webster game, you guys know it. We don't need to talk about it. But that season with they brought in Corn Robinson midseason, they did a decent amount of 5 wide receiver sets through the course of that season. We haven't seen it a ton, but Green Bay has not really had a full 5 wide receiver group that is as talented as they have right now. And we know the players: Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and Bo Melton. And of course, you could use a little bit of Malik Heath there as well. But they have the players that they need to run a true 5 wide set. Now, why would you potentially do this? Well, it could be that an opposing defense doesn't have the defensive backs to match up. But it's unlikely that they're going to go a ton of man-to-man coverage in that situation, although they could. But if they do go man-to-man, you're likely not going to have a number 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 corner, at least 5th defensive back that is going to be able to match up with the, Bo Meltons of the world. That is probably going to be advantage Green Bay far more often than not. You would probably use this as more of a change up, a change of pace, where maybe you catch them off guard. Yeah, if you start putting a bunch of 5 wide receiver sets out there, teams are going to prepare for it and they're going to know exactly how to defend it. But I don't know, middle of the third quarter, maybe you just need a little bit of a spark. Maybe you can go 5 wide, and maybe you can get Jordan Love in a little bit of a rhythm, and maybe you can just keep the offense on the field by doing some 2-minute type stuff, some no huddle offense. And maybe you can keep that personnel grouping out there without them being able to counter it or maybe get some substitutes in. So Green Bay could try something like that, especially with the 5 wide receivers that they have. And again, in this situation, I would go Melton, Reed, Wicks, Watson, and Doubs as my 5 wides. But you could use Malik Heath here as well. We know Heath and even Christian Watson are very good, blocking wide receivers on the outside. You could use Heath and Watson, and you could put, I don't know, Jaden Reed right behind him, or at least in the slot. And then you could, swing Reed behind him. And all of a sudden you've got Watson and Heath blocking against corners. And maybe you can pick up an easy 8 to 10, 12 yards that way with good blocking from Malik Heath and Christian Watson as well. So I do think there is some opportunity to use some 5 wide receiver sets this year. Again, you're not going to spam it. You're not going to use it a ton. But a change up here and there, absolutely, especially with the depth that Green Bay has at wide receiver. All right, let's talk about some 4 wide receiver sets. Let's start with 4 wide receivers and 1 running back. Again, a lot of different options here. Watson, Reed, Dobbs, and Wicks are probably your top option, but you could certainly get some Bo Melton in there. You could get some Malik Heath in there as well. And now you're integrating Josh Jacobs into this. And why this is even maybe a little bit better than the 5 wide set is you get a little bit more versatility. Now, with the 5 wide, one thing we didn't talk about is, if you go 5 wide and you spread everyone out, it's a tell, right? Unless you're running some sort of crazy QB draw, if you don't see a motion coming across where you can do a jet sweep or a handoff, you know it's going to be a pass play. With a running back in the game and Josh Jacobs, a couple different things. One, you now introduce the obviously ability to run the football with Josh Jacobs, but you can get play action off of that. And you still have the ability to split Josh Jacobs out wide. Now, he's not going to be as good of a wide receiver as your number 5 guy would be, as in this case, Bo Melton would be, but you still have the ability to do that. And we talk about maybe a guy running a screen behind a couple wide receivers. You can certainly still do that with a Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs could still get an advantageous matchup. And you might just get a better defensive look with that running back in the field than you would even potentially if you run that 5 wide receiver set. Also, more importantly, you now have somebody to pick up a blitz. And a lot of times when you do see teams go empty, teams will start pressing those wide receivers on the outside, and they'll start bringing 6 guys. You can only block 5. You've got 5 offensive linemen. There's nobody else to help, and they'll start bringing 6. And they're going to heat you up really, really fast. They're going to play those guys tight to the wide receivers, and you may not have anywhere to go with it, or they're at least going to get creative with it and try to get an open blitzer, maybe still keeping a guy over the top, but they're going to heat you up and you've got to be ready for it. But now if you've got a running back in there, you've got a guy that can be an extra, player in pass protection. That can certainly help you as well. But in this case, I think still something Green Bay could absolutely use. You probably got Jacobs in the backfield, and then pick your poison with what 4 wide receivers that you want. But again, Watson, Reed, Dobbs, and Wicks probably make the most sense more often than not. Another one you could run, 4 wide receivers with a tight end. Again, pick your 4 for a wide receiver. They can go in any different direction there. Watson, Reed, Dobbs, and Wicks, again, probably make the most sense, but you could definitely get Melton or Heath in there as well. And then you've got either Luke Musgrave or Tucker Kraft that could be utilized in that situation. And this, again, now you've got a guy in the line of scrimmage that if you want to keep an extra guy in to protect, you could do so. It doesn't necessarily add to the play action sort of thing. And you definitely don't get the benefit of the doubt where you could run the football. But I'll say this one more time. If you've got a Tucker Kraft in at tight end, for example, maybe you could in those, you could see teams come out in like dime sets against that look where you've got 4 wides and Tucker Kraft in. Could you motion a Jaden Reed into the backfield in that situation? I think you could. And you don't even necessarily need to hand him the ball. Like, he can just be a decoy. It's not necessarily somebody that you want picking up a blitz, but you go play action and maybe he just, sprints out wide or whatever you want him to do, just runs a check down route. But now you got to play action. You can keep Tucker Kraft into block. Everyone else gets out in their route. You can just kind of throw some different things at teams. And I really like the idea that you could go out there again with 4 wide receivers and a tight end, and they're just thinking pass, pass, pass. All of a sudden you motion Jaden Reed into the backfield. This, again, we don't necessarily have to talk about these as core offensive concepts or things that they're going to do game in and game out. You motion Jaden Reed into the backfield, you give him a handoff, by all means, like he could do, that a handful of times a season. I'm not saying you want to give it to Jaden Reed on a handoff 20 times a game or anything. That's a bad idea. But could you do it as a surprise here and there, as a gimmick here and there? Absolutely. And again, that could be a situation where they've got dime personnel in the field. They're expecting pass when you don't have a single running back in the game. You start with everyone out wide, and now you've got Tucker Kraft as the tight end that maybe gets matched up against a small linebacker or maybe even a corner or a safety. And now Jaden Reed's in the backfield. You can hand it to him, and you've got numbers advantage, and you've got a little bit of a strength advantage that way. Yeah, and especially if you tag team that with Malik Heath and Christian Watson and maybe Bo Melton as your wide receivers, guys that are still very good blockers with Kraft at tight end and then Reed in the backfield, that could be something that would be really, really fun, again, as a potential change of pace. But I like the potential and the idea there to use that on a few different occasions. And then you get into your sort of 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. You could go in so many different ways here. Watson, Reed, Wicks, Watson, Reed, Melton, Wicks, Reed, Melton, which is one I actually really, really like. Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, and Bo Melton all in the field. A Watson, Reed, Melton one, by the way, too. Watson, Reed, Melton, all 3 super fast guys. You put Musgrave in that tight end spot, and you've just got playmakers and speed at all 4 spots where they got to be worried about guys getting down the field. And then if they start worrying about that stuff, you can still run the football with Josh Jacobs. You've got Luke Musgrave at tight end who gives good effort there. Or you could use any of those 11 personnel packages I just mentioned with the 3 wide receivers and put Tucker Kraft at tight end too. Kraft gives you a little bit better of a blocking option. Jacobs should be a good pass protector out of the backfield. Again, you can run out of that situation. You can also do, again, heavy wide receiver sets. And what I mean by that is Malik Heath, Christian Watson, and then pick your other one that you want, whether it's Romeo Doubs or I like Bo Melton as a blocker. So you go, Watson, Heath, and Melton as your wide receivers with Kraft as your tight end and Jacobs as your running back. You feel pretty good. You can kind of motion a Malik Heath almost in as an H-back. They've done that in the past with guys like Allen Lazard. And again, now if the opposing team came out in a really small like nickel package, they've got maybe a safety like the Cowboys do, where they got that safety playing a linebacker spot, and you just have a really light defense. All right, let's run it right at them with Josh freaking Jacobs. And I think that could be something that really works well. But they have so many different options in 11 personnel with the different wide receivers that they can put in, with the 2 different tight ends that they can utilize, and with Josh Jacobs or even a Marshawn Lloyd or even an A.J. Dillon in the backfield. I think that's sort of the cool thing that we need to remember here as well. With these 11 personnel packages, Matt could see early in the game, he could just come out with Doubs, Watson, Reed, Musgrave, and Jacobs, kind of the default starting 5, right? He could come out with that and he could see how they play against nickel. And if they are soft, well, then get 3 of your bigger wide receivers in there, get Tucker Kraft at tight end, get Josh Jacobs at running back, see if they handle it the same way. And if they do, you might just be able to run at that, smaller nickel defense all day long. On the flip side, if they come out in a heavy nickel, meaning maybe they got 2 legitimate big linebackers in there, and maybe they've got a big nickel, meaning they've got 3 safeties on the field and only 2 corners. All right, well, now maybe we use a Christian Watson, a Bo Melton, a Dontavian Wicks sort of thing with all that speed on the field, Luke Musgrave at tight end, and still Josh Jacobs at running back. And now we've got all the speed on the field, and now maybe we can attack them in a different way that way. So those are the sort of things that you can get tells on early in the game. All right, how are they going to play us in nickel in 11 personnel? Are they going to go nickel, big nickel? Are they going to whatever? Are they going to go dime at times? And if you see a certain matchup that you like, there are different personnel groupings that they can put in based on what the defense is doing. And that should give Green Bay a ton of different options, even as something as simple as an 11 personnel that every team uses basically the vast majority of time. It's great, but Green Bay is going to have way different versions of that dependent upon what personnel is actually in the game. Another fun one. Could you do some 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends? Now, this gets us back a little bit to the, sort of 4 wide receivers and 1 tight end, but this is another interesting one. You've got Kraft and Musgrave at tight end, and then you've got 3 wide receivers. All right, so again, we could go back to this where maybe you've got Watson and Heath, your blocking guys. And again, Watson's so great in the respect that he's such a good blocking wide receiver. Plus, he has the ability to get down the field and he can make plays after the catch. This is why Christian is so important when he is out there and healthy. But you've got those 2 big blocking wide receivers in the game. You've got 2 tight ends in the game. Maybe, again, your other guy is a Jaden Reed. Can you motion him into the backfield and just make it look like it's a 1 running back, 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver sets? And again, then you see how the defense plays against that. If they come out and they are very, very light, maybe we run it a couple times with Jaden Reed. Or if they're very heavy, maybe we spread them out and see if we can get a mismatch on a linebacker or a safety with a Reed or a Wicks or a Reed or a Watson or a Musgrave or a Kraft and see who can win in those situations. And this is what Matt is so good at, is figuring out what you're going to throw at his different personnel packages and then calling plays and putting the right personnel in to counter whatever it is that you're going to do. And again, they will have a ton of options, even if they run something like 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, where you could put a Jaden Reed in the backfield if you wanted to. Another fun one, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs. This is another really fun one. And I think here you've got your 2 running backs, meaning I think Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd. So you've got 2 playmakers. I think you can do some of the pony personnel. Now, a lot of times with that, you're going to use a tight end sometimes, right? So you're going to use a Musgrave or a Kraft, but you could go 3 wide. You could split everyone out, and you could have a run left where Jacobs is your lead blocker, or run right where Lloyd is your lead blocker. Probably not doing that a ton. You could do it with clearly AJ Dillon as well, which they've done in the past. That hasn't worked quite as well. I think one of the reasons that the pony hasn't worked quite as well in the past is because they haven't necessarily honored AJ Dillon as kind of anything, as a good enough blocker, or certainly as a good enough pass catcher out of the backfield. I've talked about the Marshawn Lloyd play in the past where I think it was in previously with South Carolina, where they faked the handoff to the other running back. In this case, it's Josh Jacobs with Marshawn Lloyd, lined up to the right, and you fake to Josh Jacobs. Lloyd's coming this way to block, and then he takes off up the seam with your wide receivers on the outside, running go routes, and then he can kind of come in behind that, and there's that gap in the middle, and you can hit that wheel up the slot. Like, there could be some opportunities to hit that there too. And I think, again, Josh Jacobs could probably be used as a lead blocker on a couple different occasions if you wanted to, or maybe you do try AJ Dillon with those sort of looks. But I think there's some opportunities with 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs to do some creative things with those type of sets as well. Same thing where you could split all 5 guys out, or maybe you have a Malik Heath that goes in as like an H-back. Like, you could do so many different things with that type of personnel grouping. We're still on offense here, right? Two wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and a running back. These are pretty self-explanatory. You've got, maybe Watson and Dobbs, or Watson and Reed, or whoever you want as your wide receivers. Musgrave and Kraft at tight end, and Josh Jacobs at running back. That's going to be a set that we see a ton of. I also think you could do a little bit of Watson and Heath, again, your 2 best blocking wide receivers, with Kraft and Sims, meaning, Tucker Kraft is your, overall tight end. Sims is more of your blocking tight end, and then Josh Jacobs as running back. And again, if they are going to play your 2 tight end sets still in nickel, all right, let's give them our 2 best blocking tight ends, or 2 best blocking wide receivers, and put Josh Jacobs in the game. If they're light, we like running Josh Jacobs, especially especially with a formation where we have a ton of blocking ability. And you might say, well, Andy, that could be a tell then. All right, well, then we're going to run some play action off of it. If it starts being that, like, all right, we're going to run these 2, good run blocking tight ends and 2, good run blocking wide receivers. I don't have any issue, by the way, with Kraft being the tight end, Sims being the tight end. Both those guys are good pass catchers. So is Malik Heath. So is Christian Watson. And so is Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. I'm not sacrificing here. Yes, that is a more run-oriented 2 tight end set with those 2 wide receivers and that running back. But I don't feel like there's anything I can't do. And also, if I wanted to split all 5 of those out, I could do Kraft and Sims still, Jacobs out. I could do Watson, and you still have Malik Heath. You can split those guys out wide. And obviously, it becomes even more fun if it is Josh Jacobs, Luke Musgrave, and Tucker Kraft with whatever 2 wide receivers that you want, because now you have, again, the ability really to spread everyone out, or just keep Jacobs in the backfield as a blocker. But Kraft and Musgrave can certainly be used as like almost inline wide receivers as well. So again, tons of versatility and tons of options for Matt LaFleur. Could go with some 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 running back sets. So just your 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end. This is the pony personnel that we talked about before, but instead of 3 wide receivers, you've got 2 wide receivers and 1 tight end. Probably a little bit more likely. Jacobs and Lloyd in the backfield, maybe a Watson and a Reed at wide receiver, and then either a Luke Musgrave or a Tucker Kraft at tight end. They could definitely go with some 1 wide receiver, 2 tight end, 2 running back sets. I love Christian Watson with the 1 wide receiver sets. I think that's your best option. You could go Musgrave and Kraft. This one we talked about, Jacobs and Lloyd. Oh, no, so this is 2 tight end. So 1 wide receiver, 2 tight end, 2 running backs. So you could go double running backs with Jacobs and Lloyd, Musgrave and Kraft at tight end with Watson at wide receiver. Or again, you could go bigger with Watson at wide receiver, still for that deep threat, Kraft and Sims as your tight end, and Jacobs and Dillon as your running back. And again, now you've got some interesting looks that you can give to where Dillon's almost used as your fullback, Jacobs is your running back, and then Kraft and Sims, your better run blocking tight ends. And you still have Christian Watson, still a lot of play action stuff that you can run out of that as well. How about a 1 wide receiver, 3 tight end, 1 running back set? Christian Watson, again, I love as the wide receiver here. You can go Sims, Kraft, and Musgrave at tight end with Jacobs in the backfield. This gives you great versatility, tons of play action opportunities because, again, Kraft and Musgrave are threats going to be, down the field and run after the catch. Christian Watson certainly still a threat here. Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. And then, even Ben Sims is kind of the sneaky guy here that maybe teams aren't accounting for as much. So I definitely think they can go some 3 tight end set looks here with 1 wide receiver and 1 running back. How about a running back, a fullback, 2 tight ends, and a wide receiver? You got Christian Watson, Josh Jacobs as running back, Henry Pearson as your fullback, and then Sims and Kraft as your tight ends. You've got your 2 best blocking tight ends. You could certainly go Musgrave and Kraft here as well. Pearson as your fullback, Jacobs as your running back, more of a power run look. And again, a lot of play action opportunities here as well with those 2 tight ends. I still think Sims and Kraft both are going to be, sort of those threats on the rollouts and the bootlegs, the 1 tight end to the flat, the 1 running the deep crosser. And then of course you've got Watson down the field and it's just a level, right? You look deep to Watson, nope. You look the deep crosser to Musgrave or Kraft, nope. And then you look in that intermediate to either a Tucker Kraft or a Ben Sims, somebody there, and you take that. And if not, you just throw the ball away. You can, there's a lot of options with that sort of play too. But I think with the fullback in the backfield, we know that Josh Jacobs ran behind a fullback a lot with the Raiders. That could be something that Green Bay tries here as well. And then, of course, you've got your U-Bacon, your extra offensive lineman, 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. I think you go Watson, Jacobs in the backfield. I like Sims and Kraft in this situation, again, with the 2 tight ends and the extra offensive lineman. The big question is, who's your extra offensive lineman? I've been dying for some Caleb Jones. They've never done it. Travis Glover would be a really fun option. If Jordan Morgan is the guy on the bench, it could be Jordan Morgan. If Sean Ryan's the guy on the bench, it could be a Sean Ryan. You could go a variety of different guys here, but using that extra offensive lineman, I really like Travis Glover as an option here as well. But using that extra offensive lineman as more of that mauler kind of, just basically kind of putting that Mercedes Lewis type in, if we're being honest here, but it gives you that additional option. I think if it is somebody like a Jordan Morgan, he has the ability athletically to get down the field and maybe even catch a pass if you're trying to run a trick play or some sort of play action concept in the red zone. Just gives, again, Matt, a ton of options and a ton of versatility with these different looks on offense. So all of these, whether it's 5 wides, 4 wides, 3 wides, 2 wide, 1 wide, I guess I didn't put a 3 tight end, 2 running back set, but I guess theoretically they could try something like that as well. But all of these have good options for Matt. Like it would be difficult for you to try to put, together unless it's like an extra offensive lineman, 4 tight end set, with Tyler Davis coming in or something like, outside of that, you probably have just about any option or any offense that you want to run. Green Bay's going to have some really fun options along with it. Let's go to defense. Not quite as many on defense, but let's just go through some of these kind of standard looks. In our 4-3, you've got Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and again, we can rotate in Enigbari, LVN as well. Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt at defensive tackle. If you want Slayton, if you want Carl Brooks in any of these, that's certainly well within the realm of possibility. You've got Adrian Cooper, Quay Walker, and I actually like Tyron Hopper in the 4-3. I think Hopper, Walker, and Cooper in the 4-3 could be a very good linebacker trio, and I think it kind of makes sense logistically and certainly with speed to use those 3. Jair, and then for this, I'm just going to say cornerback number 2. If it's Stokes, it's Stokes. If it's Valentine, it's Valentine. If somebody else, it's somebody else. But Jair and whoever ends up winning cornerback 2, and then Bullard and McKinney at safety. They could, by the way, because this defense is versed in it, at any given moment against any given team, if they wanted to throw a changeup, they could still do a little bit of 3-4. They have a full team that's basically utilized this in the past. If they wanted to confuse a team for a quarter and go 3-4 instead of 4-3, maybe they could do something. You've got Clark, Slayton, and Wyatt along the defensive line, Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith as your edge rushers, Quay Walker and Adrian Cooper at linebacker, Jair in corner 2, and then Bullard and McKinney at safety. You could certainly try something like that. How about a 5-2? This is a defense that if you're getting gashed in the run game, they're going a lot of power run. Maybe you're going against San Francisco, something like that. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, and Preston Smith along the defensive front. Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker at linebacker, Jair in corner 2, and Bullard and McKinney at safety. A 5-1, that penny package that Green Bay ran some of last year. I don't expect to see it as much with Hafley, but maybe it's something that LaFleur liked, and maybe they throw it in there every once in a while. Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary on that defensive front. Quay Walker or maybe Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker. Jair, corner 2, and probably Keyshawn Nixon as your corner. And then Bullard and McKinney at safety. How about a general nickel, a 4-2-5? Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark, maybe LVN. We'll try LVN in this specific one. Maybe he steps up as a pass rusher this year. Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker as your linebackers. Jair, corner 2, and Nixon as your corners, with McKinney and Bullard as your safeties. How about a big nickel? Rashawn Gary, maybe an LVN again as your edges, or maybe LVN could kick inside. Carl Brooks could go inside. You could do so many different things here. We'll say Wyatt and Clark again as your defensive tackles. Cooper and Walker at linebacker. Jair in corner 2 with Javon Bullard then in the slot as your big nickel, with McKinney and then Evan Williams as your safeties. That could certainly work. How about a 1-5-5? I always love a good 1-5-5. Kenny Clark is your lone defensive tackle, maybe lined up right over the center. Then you've got Rashawn Gary, LVN, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, and Tyron Hopper all just amoebaing it, meaning they're all just standing up, moving around. And you don't know what guys are going to come from what direction. And you've got 2 pure pass rushers, and you're probably going to rush Gary from somewhere. But LVN and Cooper and Walker and Hopper, you could put all 4 back in coverage and just rush 2. You could bring all 4 of them and you could rush 5. Like you could do, all 5 of them and rush 6. Like you could do so many different things. That's kind of the fun of that look. But, you could just bring Clark and drop the other 4. You could do so many different things with that sort of look. And with 3 fast, good blitzing linebackers in Walker, Hopper, and Cooper, it gives you a ton of versatility. You could just rush 3, right? With Rashawn Gary and LVN crashing the edges, if they end up there, with Kenny Clark running over the nose, you drop your other 3 in coverage, meaning Cooper, Walker, and Hopper. You still got your 3 corners. In this case, we'll say Jair, corner 2, and Javon Bullard. I really like. If you're going to have 5 guys standing up and only 1 defensive tackle, I kind of like the big nickel in this situation with Javon Bullard in the slot, and then Jair in corner 2 on the outside with McKinney and Williams as your safeties. Again, you could also have Bullard then is kind of standing up too. He could be another guy that blitzes, and you could have Bullard blitzing off the slot with Gary and LVN coming, Kenny Clark coming, and then you drop those 3 linebackers and Hopper and Walker and Cooper. Like just so many different options with that sort of amoeba style defense where you don't know who's going to blitz, who's going to rush. And, probably Kenny is going to come, but you don't know anything else. I think Jeff Hafley could have some really fun stuff planned with that style of defense. You have your true dime defense, Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith along the edges, Clark and Wyatt on the defensive tackle side. I kind of like Edgerrin Cooper. We'll see if that could eventually be Cooper. It probably starts as a Quay Walker. In your true dime, or it's more obvious passing situations, I like Stokes and Valentine on the outside with Jair and Nixon in the slot, and then McKinney and Bullard as your safeties. And then you could even have some situations where it's like clear end of game, obvious pass situations only, where you've got your best 4 pass rushers, whoever you want it to be. Like maybe you have Gary and Smith with LVN and Wyatt, or LVN and Brooks, or LVN and Clark, whatever you think are your 4 best pass rushers. Get those guys in on the front. You could have Katano Ladapo play that linebacker role in a true, like we're talking like it's 4th and 20. We know they're going to pass, and we just want as many coverage guys on the field as possible. All right, let's get our 4 best pass rushers up front. Let's get Katano Ladapo as our linebacker here, and then Valentine and Stokes on the outside, Jair and Nixon in the slot, with McKinney and Bullard at safety. Now you're getting 7 defensive backs on the field with 4 of your best pass rushers. Get after the quarterback with your 4, cover with your 7 defensive backs elsewhere. You could have some fun with that too. So all different opportunities. And again, with any of these, again, your defensive front at edge, you can use Gary, you can use Preston, you can use Enigbare, you can use LVN. Defensive tackle, you can use Slayton, Clark, Wyatt, Wooden, Brooks, and even LVN kicking inside. At your off-ball linebacker, yeah, you have Quay and you have Cooper, but you also have Tyron Hopper. You have Isaiah McDuffie, who could be useful in some sets. Eric Wilson's been getting some looks in base defense in OTA so far. At corner, you have Stokes and Valentine and Ballantyne and Jair and so many of these guys you can play outside. In the slot, in obvious pass situations, you could use Jair in the slot. You could put Keyshawn Nixon there. You could put Javon Bullard there. You could put Evan Williams there. You could put Kalen King there. You've got a lot of different options in the slot. We've seen Corey Ballantyne get some time in the slot. That's another interesting one. And then at safety, you've got all these different safety types: Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney, Katano Ladapo, Anthony Johnson Jr., all these different types that can be used in so many different ways. And that's the beauty of both the offense and the defense, is there are so many of these players that can do so many unique things that you don't have to, even within your 11 personnel package, you can have like 7 different versions of your 11 personnel package because of all the different types you have at running back, at tight end, and at wide receiver. On defense, your nickel can look vastly different depending on what defensive tackles you put in, depending on what edge rushers you put in, what linebackers you put in, who you put as your slot. It can look so different. It's a nickel, yes, but there's like 20 different ways that Jeff Hafley could run a nickel defense with this particular group of players. That's what makes this so fun. And then one other one to throw out there for you too, a Rich Bisaccia one. I really like the idea. We talked about this a little bit with Justice Mosqueda the other day of like, hey, you might need to put 2 kick returners back there. Assuming the fumble thing is cured and it's no longer an issue, and we don't have to worry about it with Marshawn Lloyd, putting Keyshawn Nixon and Marshawn Lloyd back there as your 2 returners, I think is going to give you a dynamic returner anytime either of those guys touches the ball. So if it does end up being a situation where you need to put 2 back there, I would love to see Marshawn Lloyd be the guy that wins that job next to Keyshawn Nixon. All right, lots of different options. These are all fun things to think about. Just even within those personnel packages, the different plays that you can call out of each of those, the play actions on offense, the blitzes on defense. The world is literally Jeff Hafley and Matt LaFleur's oyster right now. They have all the utensils that they need at their disposal to be dangerous at any given moment. And that, to me, is really what's going to be the strength of this football team, is you don't know what is going to hit you at any given moment, and LaFleur and Hafley are going to have everything at their disposal. That's going to do it for me today. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members: Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Shea Bradad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donna Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Bremen, Dan Miller, Alex Wong, and Arnaldo Espinoza. I want to hear from you. Let me know what your best and most what like the formation or the we'll say formation and player personnel package that you're most looking forward to on defense, and which one you're most looking forward to on offense. Would love to hear from you all. I will see you guys tomorrow, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.